Well, speaking of Forsyth County, why don't we bring in the representative from the 24th?
Oh!
Welcome to the Bettis Musgrove Show, the podcast where personal injury legal expertise meets real-world advice to empower and protect you. Join us as we delve into the critical aspects of personal injury cases, break down legal jargon into actionable insights, and share essential safety tips to help you navigate life's unexpected moments. And now, here are your hosts, Spenser Bettis and Ben Musgrove.
All right, so back from our TV time out there, we've got Mr. Carter Barrett joining us. Carter, thanks for coming. Brent's told us a lot about him and where he came from and how he got into House Representatives. So why don't you, or the Georgia House Representatives, so why don't you tell us about you? Where'd you come from? How'd you get here?
I'm an Augusta native.
Okay.
Family's been in Georgia since Georgia became a state, I think. I've been in Forsyth County since June 4, 1990.
Okay.
Coincidentally, they just, they do the census every 10 years. They had just done the census. Forsyth County had 45,000 people in it back then. And none of the stuff hardly any of the stuff we see today was here back then.
Yeah.
I think they just finished South Forsyth High School. We had Central and South Forsyth, and that was it. And obviously today we're 285,000, and I've been very, very involved and very, very proud to be a part of the community. I almost feel like a local now after that many years.
I count you as a local.
What year were you born?
88.
So you got him by 2 years. All right.
That's funny.
That's funny. It is. So tell us about you and your personal life. What do you do for a living, that type of thing?
So I was a banker for my entire career. I came here to work for Wachovia Bank on the square back in 1990. And I opened up a branch for the bank. It was essentially a double-wide trailer down there where Halcyon is today. And back then, it was out in the middle of a field. Yeah. If you'd go in on the weekends to work, maybe you'd go and write your little credit memos or whatever, you'd have people out shooting birds and all around the bank. It's like, God, this is a little different.
Right.
I had people that were nervous about going to work there because they thought we were all going to get robbed and murdered in that branch back then. It was just, that's how remote it was back then. So just a totally different place. But a 35-year banker, my claim to fame, I guess, in business was back in 2006. We left the large bank that we worked for. I went with a couple of friends, and we started Community Business Bank.
Okay.
Raised $16.8 million from 313 investors. Almost all of them were local.
Yeah.
And we opened that bank in January of 2008 at the beginning of the Great Recession.
I was going to say, pretty tough time to start a bank there.
An unusual time, and it's a tough time and a good time, strangely. So we built that bank up very successfully, and we sold that in May of 2015. Had a good outcome for our shareholders. It was one of the cleanest banks in the country. It was very small, but we had a Texas ratio of 0 every quarter for 7 years. Absolutely one of the cleanest banks in the country.
That's awesome.
From a financial soundness perspective.
Yeah.
So long-term banker, been very involved in the community for the entire time I got here. Strangely enough, Spenser, your father started Leadership Forsyth. Yep. And I was proud back in, I think, 1993 or so, the Chamber of Commerce said, we didn't have a class last year. We'd like to get it going again. And they asked Jim Wheeler and Cindy Wheeler and me to sort of get the class going in 1994 or 1995, and I went through that class in, I think, 95.
Yeah.
The organization your dad started.
He just
graduated. I just graduated last night from there.
That's so funny.
Class,
isn't that something?
Yeah.
I literally had I had a T-shirt on from exercising. It's Youth Leadership Forsyth.
Yep.
I changed in the parking lot.
Oh, you just kept it on.
Just kept it. Yeah.
But it's funny because I was wearing my Youth Leadership Forsyth, and I think about what your dad started back in, what was it, 89 or 90?
Sounds right.
And think about the ripple effect of one guy in the right place, and your dad's he's my favorite Forsithian. Period.
You've never met a person that did not like Phil Bettis.
You never met a person that didn't like and respect Phil Bettis.
Yep.
But for him to help start that organization back then, and you think about the ripple effect of that, and now youth leadership and all those kids going out into the world because of that. And I think that the power of one person in the right place at the right time is that's a life lesson for me.
We've said it before. I don't know. We've had 20, 25 people on the podcast. I think 98% of them have gone through Leadership Forsyth at some point in time. It's a really cool organization.
That's fantastic.
The ripple effect is huge. Have you done it?
I have not.
We got to get you in there.
That's what I'm hearing.
They're interviewing next week.
Yeah,
so
interviews in this office next
week.
week.
We happen to know a guy on the board. If you want to do it, let us know. That's all. So how did you end up getting into politics? What made that transition?
Just being very involved in the community. I started volunteering back at the very beginning. I was on the Sawney Community Center board. I remember I saw Ann Crow and Roger Crow recently, and maybe remember that. But back in the beginning, early days, they used to raise their annual fundraiser was a triathlon they would do, and they'd make me go out and sweep up the roads and put all the cones out and get the dead cat out of the highway, and so that the people riding their bicycles would have a safe course. I've just been very active in the community ever since I got here, and this is just such a great community that if you put your toe in the water, you volunteer, you plug in, and it's easy to plug in Forsyth County and get involved.
Yep.
And so I've been on United Way boards and presidents of Rotary clubs and of the Linear Forsyth Rotary Club, and it's just been a great privilege to be here. This county's been so good to my family and me. Jamie and I got married 30 years ago. We raised Eleanor and Cornelia. They both graduated from Forsyth County schools. They went to West. And we've just been very involved in the community. So to me, this was just a logical next step. I kind of thought really great representatives or great senators, they know the community well because they've been here. They've spent the time in the community. They've been involved in the community. They spend lots of times with the citizens here and elected officials to sort of get a sense for what the community needs.
Yep.
And then they build good relationships here, and then they go down to the Capitol, and hopefully they build a good rapport down there. And ideally, good representatives like Brent here will know what the community needs, and they'll be fierce advocates for the community down at the Capitol as well.
Okay.
And long after they're gone from that position, long after people forget who we were, or there will be a legacy of things that endure in the community that benefit the community.
Yep.
And a good example would be University of North Georgia. So I was very proud back in 2004 or 5 to get I co-chaired the Envision 2030 project for the community with another guy. And it was a series of meetings around the community for a year. And one thing that came out of those series of meetings was we want this to be a community of lifelong learning. Mm-hmm. We should have a 4-year university right here in Forsyth County. And that's where the idea came for us to get a 4-year university. And then the mayor, Mary Helen McGrew, and the chamber and folks came together and started working to bring University of North Georgia to Forsyth County. And today we've got that great university and our kids are benefiting. But there's a partnership there from the citizens and those types of ideas to going down to the Capitol and bringing those resources. This year, Brent and the rest of our delegation all helped bring $31 million for University of North Georgia's new STEM building up in Dahlonega.
Yeah.
Now, it's not in Forsyth County, but it's right up the road, and our kids will all get to benefit from that. They'll be doing dual enrollment classes up there, and they're going to create an engineering program up there in the not too distant future. And that's we've got 4-year degrees right here at the Cumming campus. We've got this great STEM building. So when it really works well, you got guys who know what the community needs and ladies, and they're representing, and they have a sense for that, and then they can go down there and be good advocates. But they got to have good relationships down there.
Sure.
I felt like we needed to work on that a little bit at the Capitol at the time, and that's what made me decide to run.
And Brent, I forgot to ask you, how many terms have you served now?
We're both came in the same class.
Okay. So two terms?
This is my second term.
Okay.
Going into year 4.
All right. Start campaigning for the next one here soon, I guess.
From learning how this process works, I think campaigning pretty much happens all the time, except when we're not in session.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're in session, you're not doing it every other time. Is that not true?
That's absolutely true.
Yeah. When will you learn if you have an opponent?
When they sign up.
Okay. All right.
We're running against you, so that's pretty much how we'll know.
Gotcha.
At that point.
And you get opponents in the primary potentially and opponents in the general election. So you really do sort of never stop running, it feels like.
Yeah.
And we were talking, it's good accountability.
We were talking about the 2-year term earlier too. I almost feel like it's a little too short. You need a little bit more time to get your feet wet before you have to start running again, in my opinion. But how do you guys feel about that?
Well, being in this now for my 3rd year, going in my 4th, I don't see how you can get stuff done in 4 years because there's a process that you have to learn. I mean, to really be able to impact in the world of appropriations. The question is it fiscally sound to spend all this money on these political races every 2 years?
Yeah.
At the same time, it forces us as legislators to be in the community every 2 years.
Yep.
So I think our founding fathers were pretty smart. Now remember, they were riding on horses, right? So that, or walking, that was a different world. I think 2 years is fine. I mean, if it went to 4 years, I could see that making sense, but there's a reason 2 years is there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to trust the past over, where we currently are. That's my take. I don't know.
It's a great answer.
Yeah, what's your thought?
Yeah, I think that think about the United States Congress,
Right?
Having a congressman having to run every 2 years, and the amount of money that's in politics now.
Yep.
It's kind of crazy.
Now that's different from back in the day, right?
Right.
And that's the point, the fiscal piece.
And I'm afraid that our friends in Washington D.C. are probably having to be in constant fundraising mode, which is just an enormous distraction away from the actual work. I think locally we've sort of landed on, let's just do the work as well as we can, as long as we can, and quit worrying about getting elected or reelected. And I think that sort of will take care of itself. If we do the job well and remember who we're serving, then it's funny, you have to campaign a lot less.
Yep.
Makes sense.
But what a new thing that's sort of emerging though is we got people sort of moving in that are literally moving in to run for office.
Yeah.
Here they're thinking, oh well, Forsyth County's changing a lot, and there's an opportunity to maybe make inroads. And we literally have people moving in from other parts of the country or other parts of the state and saying, well, I'm going to move to Forsyth County. And they'll, my opponent last time decided they were going to run for office before they never voted in an election here.
Really?
So brand new. Had been here for like a year.
Well, talking about having your finger on the pulse of the community and knowing what's going on, it's hard to do if you never lived here before.
It does help to be here for a little
Yeah.
But we've become very transient here too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of the old history with it in growth, I appreciate growth. I don't have a problem with the growth, but you lose a lot of that community feel.
Sure.
So if there's a way to keep the community feel, that's obviously something I think we all should keep fighting for, because that's what people like to call home.
Yeah. No, when we first moved here, Chris Light, I talked about him earlier, he convinced me to move here after law school. I'm from Carrollton, Georgia, and he said, I think you'll like coming. I was living in Swanee at the time. Don't like Gwinnett County, but he's like, I think you'll like coming. It's a lot like Carrollton, just a little bit bigger. Still got that hometown feel, and it did when we first got here. But I mean, now we have that feel in our little Matt community, but then when you get outside of Matt, it's a lot different.
Yeah. Matt's definitely got that feel too.
Yeah. What I think you're going to find with hopefully with guys like us is that a guy like Phil Bettis, that is who people like that is who I'm trying to emulate. So whether we're representing, it's a great privilege to get to represent this community down in the Capitol, but whether we're representing this community at the Capitol or just working in the community, we're going to be here.
Right.
The day I'm not a representative anymore, I'm still going to be here.
Yeah.
The next day, I'm going to be back in your face, showing up, volunteering. And I'm proud when people call and say, can you help us with something? Yeah, absolutely. What you got? We don't say no very often when people need help.
Yep.
And we're not going to be any different when we're unelected than we are elected. I feel confident saying that about Brent.
I mean, the guys that I've met that are your colleagues, I feel like I can say that for most of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good group of folks. It really is. The ones around here anyway.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you have Carter, who's been here a while, and then you have my family who's been here. I mean, I have family buried on Post Road from before they were born before the Declaration of Independence. And,
that's true. Wow.
I mean, so we have a lot of history in this state, and specifically in this area that we live and call home. And my kids, I mean, I'm very thankful. They all, you think they all going to go somewhere else and move, and all my kids came back, said they want to be near us, and we have grandkids that are near us all the time. And this is home for my family. I mean, this is where we will be.
Yeah.
This is where we want to be.
I think that's an awesome segue into where I want to go next. Just talk, you guys get to see a little bit more behind the scenes of Georgia than your average citizen, obviously, with budgets and whatever else and what's going on with the port or whatever it may be. What makes Georgia such an amazing state? an amazing place to live, work, play, that type of thing, as opposed to our surrounding states.
You go ahead.
That's a great question. The fact that Georgia has been the number one state in the nation to do business 11 years in a row is almost hard to get your head around.
Sure.
We just got, and this didn't just happen yesterday. We didn't just fall into it. It's a lot of long term thinking and careful planning. Important decisions happen over time. The port in Savannah, the airport, which, could have ended up in a state next to us instead of here. Those types of decisions some of those are fortuitous, but a lot of long-term planning. It's in it. What's that expression? If you don't know where you're going, pretty much any road will do. And I think that's a Stephen Covey kind of a thing. But the truth is, careful planning is why we're here. We've got a great governor who's absolutely committed to economic development. This community, our school system is a prime example. It didn't just happen. I heard someone say to me once, and I had a little debate, and he said, of course we've got great schools. We're such an affluent community. And I said, you're completely backwards on that.
Right.
We're an affluent community because we have great schools.
Makes sense.
Because I remember our schools weren't that great. And I've watched a lot of people in our business community over a lot of years through Partners in Education and things like that, consistently working. The fact that our school system has gotten better and better and better in spite of the dramatic growth, a community of 45,000 people when I got here to 285,000 or so today. In our school, it would be a miracle just to maintain.
Sure.
But we got better and better and better. We got a great superintendent, Mitch Young, today. We've had very good folks in the past, but that's a lot of planning.
Yeah.
So if you want to have a great business environment, if you want to bring great companies, you got to make sure you've got the right infrastructure, the right schools, those things. So I think Georgia has just had great leadership for a good long time. You think about, as an example, think about Zell Miller.
Yeah.
And Hope Scholarship. Think about what Hope has done for our state, for our university system here.
Paid for my college.
In technical schools, et cetera. Yeah, think about how many people have benefited, and look how much better our schools are getting because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think a lot of good decisions and great leadership over a long period of time and we're reaping the benefits of that.
Go back to the every 2 years that we have to run. Well,
right.
Also as members of the General Assembly, we have to balance a budget. There's an idea. Let's balance a budget.
Yeah.
And I think when you are fiscally sound, as Carter would know, and we all know, that gives opportunity for greatness, because when you don't keep things in line financially, then there's going to be holes and failure.
Yeah. Well, correct me if I'm wrong too, not just fiscally sound, but running with a surplus and being able to reduce taxes accordingly based on the surplus, right?
Right. Well, I'm kind of, we shouldn't have a surplus. That means we're overcharged.
I agree more.
But hey, what do I know?
If you need my address to send a check, let me know.
No, but yes, in those projections, as any business owner would do, and from a government standpoint, you want to be conservative in your estimates. So if we're exceeding the estimates, kudos for the state of Georgia and the businesses for doing great.
Right.
But less government. Let the people do their thing, less regulation. And I think that's the leadership of our current governor and past governors. And, it's Georgia's a unique place. I mean, you have, as far as a place to come live, it's a gorgeous state. You have North Georgia mountains.
Yep.
You have Lake Lanier, Oconee, Hartwell, Altoona. You make your way. I mean, of course, up in Raven, you've got some beautiful, there's lakes all over the state. You get into South Georgia with the farmland, and then you get the coastline in the Golden Isles.
Yep.
And
the swamp.
It is a unique place to live.
Yeah.
And, I think that it draws people here, especially after COVID. People can work remotely, and they're trying Georgia sounds interesting.
I got a little nervous after COVID. It seemed like we were getting a big influx there.
A huge influx. I know. So just don't bring your politics with you. But you're welcome in the state of Georgia.
That's awesome. Carter, we talked with Brent earlier about some of the bills that he's been most proud to kind of get behind or present. What are some that you've had in your terms here that you've presented that you're proud of?
We get to affect things basically three different ways down at the Capitol.
Yeah.
There are general bills that are statewide bills,
Mm-hmm.
and we can talk about some of those. And then we have local legislation that affects only our community. And then we also can affect things through appropriations. And so I'm proud to have been named the vice chairman of the Higher Education Committee, which is over, for the House of Representatives, which is over technical schools and the university system of Georgia. So that gives you an idea of some of the things that are very important to me. That was not an accident that I asked to be on the Higher Education Committee. Brent is asked to be on the education, which is K through 12.
Right.
And so I thought it made perfect sense for us to be able to work off of each other, for him to be on K through 12 and for me to be on higher ed. So general bills that I've been involved in, last year I passed a central bank digital currency bill. That was interesting because it kind of was a statement bill about the inherent right to privacy of Americans. And that was about the Federal Reserve creating a digital currency that would be sort of the government's answer to Bitcoin and those things. But the idea that they would know exactly what you spent your money on all the time and exactly where you were when you spent it is problematic for many Georgians. And so we passed a little bill last year to do that. And my first session, I worked on a bill that helps protect senior citizens from financial exploitation. So I was proud to be named the Legislator of the Year my first year for the Georgia Council on Aging.
Congrats.
We passed a bill for the local legislation, the floating homestead exemption bill, which caps how much your property taxes can go up in any given year at just 4% for schools. That's people's taxes were spiraling out of control with inflation and home prices going up, and so we took action. And then the state of Georgia came in and passed a bill sort of similar to that. I think our bill is a better bill that we did locally, but I think that was kind of a precursor to that statewide bill a year later. But we were very proud of that, and we worked very closely with the school board and with the administration and our delegation of members, and it took getting the entire school board. What I liked about that bill is because it really is where the rubber meets the road. It helps local families, and everything we try to do, we think, how does this affect the local folks who live in Forsyth County? That bill caps people's property taxes.
Yeah.
But to get it done, it took the entire. We had to have a unanimous school board. Every school board member had to get on board. Every person in the delegation had to get on board. That's 13 people.
Right.
All politicians, by the way, to get them to grab a paddle and paddle in the same direction.
Yeah.
But to build a consensus there to get that done for the citizens of this county, I was just so proud of that. We passed little things like resolutions. People were playing politics around the senior exemption for property taxes. And that's a great benefit of living in Forsyth County for our senior citizens, that they were suggesting that people were trying to get rid of that. So we went right back to the Capitol. We passed a resolution that said that's not going anywhere. We are going to fight to protect that fiercely. So that resolution gives an explanation of the history of that senior exemption, but also what would be required to change it. And the fact is, it's not going anywhere. It is going to be defended tooth and nail. So a lot of things like that. But on the appropriation side, it's not actually a bill. But on appropriations, bringing funds for University of North Georgia's 7,000 square foot expansion, the new building out here. I got my budget and the size backwards. $100 million last year for the widening of Highway 20. The Denmark Library, the ribbon cutting is this Saturday morning. I hope you all come to that. It's a great library. So funding for that, funding for the new University of Georgia STEM building, the new medical college at University of Georgia, which a lot of our kids are going to get to go to.
Yep.
So there's a lot of stuff. This year, Brent knows he helped me craft it. The subscription renewal bill. Everybody we know has been impacted with these automatic renewals on subscriptions you get. You go get a newspaper subscription, you pay $56 for the first year. The next year, they automatically renew you for $280. The next year, it renews automatically, and it's $480 or something like that. And that's a real example.
Oh, yeah.
And they just sort of slip it by you. And I thought, people are getting duped by these things. When you go subscribe to something and you do it for a year, you shouldn't be forced to have an automatic renewal. They can offer it to you and you can accept it if you want, but they shouldn't be able to make you do an automatic renewal because they're counting on you to get it and forget it.
Yeah.
And so that's a bill I was very passionate about this year, and we've gotten it through the House. It passed overwhelmingly in the House. We're hopeful that the folks in the Senate, they kind of left a little early this year, so we're hopeful that they'll pick that bill up next year and help us get it through because it will help every single family in the state of Georgia. So that's what I'm very passionate about, and Brent worked very closely with me to help to craft that bill. I had to go through his committee. He's on agriculture and consumer affairs. That's the consumer affairs side of it.
Yeah.
And we got grilled pretty hard, but Brent played a great role in helping craft that bill to make it even better for families.
Yeah.
That's one too.
We've got hit with those legal research websites that law firms use. They do automatic renewals, and they do hope you forget about it. At least I think they do. But
I just renewed ours yesterday, actually.
yeah, there you go. What you kind of mentioned one there. What are some bills or goals you guys have going into the next session? What would you like to see done? I know it's a loaded question, but
we won't hold you to it, I promise.
There's a House Bill 675, which I mentioned earlier, which is on foreign terrorism and people who are supporting these organizations. Is a bill that creates a felony, a crime for individuals who do this. And it also gives the DAs the ability to handle these issues, which currently we do federally.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not exactly like the federal law, but it gives the state of Georgia the ability to also do this.
Mm.
And some of the hate, and this is the piece I was saying we need teeth in House Bill 30, which is the anti-Semitism bill, but that would allow locally in the state the ability to fight these battles. So that got through Judicial Committee, and it got through rules, and hopefully we can get that one through because I think that's an important piece.
Mm.
So that's one, and then I have a couple other bills. One is on NIL and athletics and putting some guardrails around NIL. You can't stop NIL because of child actor laws and things like that exist in the state. But we definitely can make sure we protect the student athlete. That one of the keys to it is once they graduate high school or leave the school, whether they're drafted or whatever, go to college, that those contracts they have with the agents end, and then they have to renegotiate the collegiate level because currently between the NCAA and into the professional sports, as y'all know, it's been the wild, wild west. Some of these agents that got in certain deals, they were unended.
Yeah.
So they're getting a cut of $100 million contract. Well, that's not okay. So that's one that'll help. It's these little things that you work on add up to bigger things. And that's something that I've been focusing on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, every year, someone told me recently that legislative council is, we've got a group of attorneys
right.
to help us draft legislation. Someone told me recently that legislative council drafted over 4,000 pieces of legislation this year.
Just for this session.
Now, they're not all different. They're different iterations of the same bill often, but probably close to 1,000 bills, give or take, are dropped or introduced by legislators in the Senate and the House. And of those, probably somewhere just over 300 or so will actually make it through the House and the Senate, and at both chambers, and then make it to the governor's desk for his signature or veto. It's so many bills, but then but every year we probably do 4 or 5 really overarching big things. This year, school safety was probably everyone's top priority after the school shooting over there at Appalachia High School. So that was enormously important. Tort reform. That was the governor went all in on tort reform, and that bill passed with 91.
Did y'all know
votes.
that?
Yeah,
We do.
we're figuring it out as we speak.
I was trying not to talk about that here. Thanks, Carter.
But it was one of the key initiatives this year of the governor.
Sure.
And so he really he went all the way in on that bill. Tax refunds and cutting the tax rate. That was always a big deal. The only thing we have to do, two things. We show up on the second Monday of January to convene, and then we have to pass a balanced budget. Everything else is above and beyond what we're constitutionally required to do. But when you think about all that legislation, and there's some really nice bills in there that are kind of feel-good bills that, what's the state bird or whatever, or the state whatever. And I'm not going to specifically say which ones because I don't want to trivialize those things, but they're nice feel-good bills.
Right.
But then there are bills that we do that are really do move the needle. House Bill 340 was signed this morning by the governor. I just got back from that. That bill eliminates cell phones in schools, K through 8. There's just enough evidence now about the tremendous damage those things are doing to these young developing minds and the distractions in our schools. So that bill is going to set the expectation that different school systems will have a plan, and it gives them enough latitude to craft a plan that's right for their system. But it will eliminate those cell phones in schools. So there are the fun, feel-good bills, and then there are bills like that I think will really have a dramatic impact on the state. So we like the feel-good bills too, like everybody else. But hopefully you'll see us working on some really meatier bills like that too this coming session.
Yep. And hopefully, I mean, I was on the committee as that bill was coming through, and it would be ideal if we could even get that up to 12th grade.
Talking about the cell phone bill?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Or at least have some guardrails around even the whole social media platform, because that gets into mental health. And it's like, we've got to allow kids to be able to have like this conversation.
Sure.
Like, this is rare.
Yeah.
They don't know how to have a conversation. We got to get back to people having relationships with one another and be able to communicate.
Yeah.
And, I think the bill that was signed this morning, I mean, that's a starting point, and we won't reap the benefits of that till many years to come. But that's how Forsyth County became great, was years before all of us.
Sure.
We just happened to be walking in those shoes that before us fought for this county. Like, it'd be your father, but I would say it would even be a couple generations before.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. We sort of look at, we don't, we're not here to show up and put our own unique stamp on everything.
Sure.
Right.
But you do get to do that some, but you're really like links in a chain.
Yeah.
And hopefully you're just making gradual, steady, relentless improvements for your community and your state. And that's what we try to do.
Yeah.
Is, and make sure we're always looking through the filter. Are we serving for the right reasons, or do we remember who we're serving? Every day, that's what we should be asking ourselves. When we come up out of the bed in the morning and we go to bed at night, are we doing the job the right way for the right reasons? And I think we are mindful of that a lot.
Right.
Well, you brought it up, the big nasty word, tort reform, of words, I should say. You comfortable talking about it?
I'm very comfortable for my colleague here to give all the great explications.
I'll be more glad to talk about it.
Well, I mean, obviously, we're a personal injury firm. We didn't like it. We're living with it, and we'll figure out how to work with it. I don't think it was as bad as it could have been for us. What are your general thoughts on it? Why did you guys vote yes for it, I guess is a better question.
I'm a business owner.
Okay.
And in the restaurant industry, over the years, I've been in meetings all across the country for some very large chain restaurants, where risk management meetings that I've been a part of as I present our product. Some of the stories that I heard of people frankly, which you won't like this, but I don't care.
I bet you're not gonna hurt my feelings.
Intentional slipping at McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's and these restaurants. And next thing you know, these people are making $300,000 to $500,000 a year and finding the right locations to do that. And as I saw that, and within the business world, premise liability and some of those issues is something that we definitely needed to address in the state. And my take was always, I think we need great trial lawyers first. And not all trial lawyers are great.
Very few of them are.
That's true.
And the same is true for us in the political world. And the same is true. I mean, there's neglect. There's all kinds of things that happen. That's why y'all are needed. At the same time, I want to make sure that there's business in the state of Georgia to be able to operate so the great trial lawyers actually have a job. Because if we ultimately get to where insurance companies refuse to come to the state, then it's going to result in many businesses having to shut down because they can't get insured, which means there's nobody to sue. I'm kidding. But I'm kidding. That's a joke. But the point of it is, to me, we picked this form of tort reform, but to me, we've got to address the insurance problem too. And I think there's so many angles to this problem.
Yeah.
It's not trial lawyers are the issue. We need tort reform. Okay. That's my personal belief. I don't believe that that's the issue. I believe the issue is much more complex. It has to do with insurance. It has to do with trial lawyers that I don't have a lot of respect for. And It has to, but you know what? It's a country, right? Rule of law is going to win, but there's other pieces to that puzzle. I voted yes for it. But I also want to make sure in the House that my colleagues weren't being threatened. Thought that was important. I also, if they were against it, I also thought that as legislators in the House, it was important that the committee which it went before could be able to work the process and let it go through the committee process. I think the process is important to me.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise, if we're just going to stamp something, I got other things I can do. You know, I mean, my family and all these things. We're down there to legislate, so let us do our job. And they did. And that was the end point.
Yeah, the fact that bill it passed so narrowly, I think is an interesting point. That
a great point, Carter.
It is.
Nobody is completely happy, and nobody is completely pulling their hair out.
Right.
Yeah.
Over that bill, and
it
you
passed
just
one vote. You know that
one
vote.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and 3 Democrats flipped. So,
and when I look at certain people, I mean, we spend a lot of time talking to other people. You can't be an absolute expert on every piece of legislation.
Right.
There's too much legislation, and so you have to look to the chairman of these committees and other people that you respect on the committees. Stan Gunter is a former Superior Court judge. He's the chairman of Judiciary.
Right.
You know, I even talked to him and how he said, well, you know, on the one hand this, on the other hand that. I've talked to a lot of lawyers and I kind of got that, well, you know, it was a lot of careful thought. Are we finding the right balance? We don't want to be too extreme in any way, but you do want to make Georgia an attractive place to do business. You know, my wife, just a personal story, you know, she said, our daughter moved to Boston to go to Tufts University for her master's. She said, her car insurance is half in Boston what it is here. I thought that was an interesting story. I haven't gotten really behind that story much, but to his point about insurance premiums, we're doing a study committee this summer to talk about insurance premiums. Some people said, we're not totally happy with the tort reform bill because we feel like it doesn't address insurance enough.
Yeah.
Well, Speaker Burns has a study committee this summer. You can stay tuned for part 2 of this.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do anything too draconian or too extreme. I mean, incremental improvements. You'll see people introduce a piece of legislation, and sometimes the process goes really slow, but sometimes it goes too fast.
Sure.
And you'll see a bill, and it's kind of half-baked that gets passed, but then you see incremental changes come in subsequent years to improve on that legislation. So I think that this is a solid effort. I think if the governor hadn't really put that much effort into it, I think it wouldn't have happened. It was such a close vote that
Sure.
on any given day, it may have ended up going a different way.
Yeah.
But I think it was interesting. You said, you weren't completely dissatisfied with it. I think that was an interesting comment. I'm curious what you think.
I mean, there's a lot of it that I don't like. There's some throwaways. Like I think the seatbelt thing, that was silly. I mean, why we were ever not able to talk about seatbelt, or defense wasn't able to talk about seatbelts, is something that's just ridiculous. Now they've got the burden to prove the seatbelt caused a difference or didn't cause a difference, whatever. That's not an issue. It's the real things that bother me. One is the bifurcated trials. I get why they put it in there, but if you talk to judges, it's going to create a mess in terms of just the efficiency of how these trials are run. Doing this thing sometimes 2 and 3 times. You got to try this case on liability, then you got to turn around and try the case on damages. If you're successful on liability, then you got to turn around and try the case again on punitive damages. So you're talking about 3 trials, keeping a jury there potentially 3 times as long as they would have been there had you just had the trial 2 or 3 days and it's over with. I think that's a mess. There's some challenges with you guys probably heard it referred to as anchoring, how we're able to tell a jury, look, this case, we're going to ask you for $100 million. We say that right out of the gate. Now we can't talk about those damages until our first closing. And we can only talk about what we're going to ask if it's rationally related to the evidence that's in question. So a lot of the examples that were thrown out that trial lawyers are using, like the cost of a private jet or Matt Ryan's, contract that he signed with the Falcons is a life not more valuable than a NFL contract. I get why these things why you wanted to keep these out and not let us say that to a jury, but I think that the fact that we're not able to tell a jury this is how we value this case up front, and we have to wait all the way until the very end, is going to mislead some jurors. And I'm afraid you're going to see defense counsel get up there in their closing and say, in the first trial on liability, hey, if you guys fine for us, you get to go home. If you don't fine for us, we got to have another trial about damages. You're going to prejudice jurors there who don't want to be there to begin with. So there's a lot of things like that I think need to be fixed. I think the Court of Appeals will probably fix it for you guys, and then you'll get to tinker with it again, maybe 2-3 years from now. But in the meantime, we've got to jump through those hoops and see what we can do with it. The other stuff, though, insurance, I don't like. It was always weird to me that we got to claim full total charges on medical bills, right? So the jury never got to see health insurance was involved. But at the same time, we never got to talk about State Farm being involved in paying the damages for the defendant. So now the defense gets to get up there and talk about health insurance. We still don't get to talk about State Farm. I feel like if you're going to do fair, just let us talk about insurance. Everybody gets to hear about it. Is a jury going to award a bigger number because an insurance company's paying the verdict? Maybe. Or are they going to award less because health insurance is paying the damages? Maybe. I don't know. But you got to keep it fair. So I don't like that only health insurance is going to be able to be talked about. That's weird.
And time will tell, right?
Sure.
And again, like most pieces of legislation, I think you'll see some adjustments.
Yeah, I think
over time, and the passage of a little time and real world experience and how it all plays out will be important.
And some of the great trial lawyers that you're talking about are already figuring out how they're going to present these cases so they can get them up on appeal, and let the Supremes work it out. So we'll see.
You guys are pretty smart. I think y'all will.
Well, that's why we have a job, right? I mean,
well, it's just shifting what your ask is.
Yeah.
Right. So,
and I'll say this too. I feel like
the grand finale is going to be your ask.
Yeah.
Not the entry.
It is, but being able to let a jury know what they're going to be thinking about, I think, is important. And also, so we just tried a case, 2 weeks ago in Fulton County, being able to tell them up front during jury selection, I'm going to ask you for $10 million. Is there anybody here in this jury pool that just under no circumstance could ever award $10 million? Somebody raises their hand, they need to go. They have a bias. They should not sit on this jury. Now, that person's going to be sitting there. Even though there's a bias, I wasn't able to explore it because I'm not able to give a range of numbers or a specific number. Mm-hmm. I can say something like, is there anybody here adamantly opposed to awarding a big number? What's a big number? Maybe $1 million, maybe $10 million, maybe $10,000. They're going to raise their hand. I'm limited in what I can say, what I can ask them about that number. So I don't know that we can pick as fair jurors as we could 2 weeks ago when we tried that case. I mean, those guys were very open when I told them our number. Yeah, I'm very comfortable at that number. That's okay. Or no, we had one guy, I can still see him. I mean, T-shirt and curly
What's
hair.
your limits? Any of y'all have a hard time giving away the state of Georgia's land? Can you use that as an? I'm kidding.
I mean, no.
We're gonna have to get creative. We'll see.
Yeah.
Or a yacht. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, that's what,
that's what'll happen.
There were some tough laws.
They'll figure out what the holes are, and
yeah, I think so.
that's just what'll happen.
It's just so long as we're able to pick fair jurors without them being prejudiced for one, having to try this thing potentially 3 times.
Wasn't there, like, right in the middle of while we were getting ready to vote, it seems like a few days, wasn't there the judgment for the employee at Starbucks for like $50 million, something like that happened right at that time? Does that sound right?
There
was
a large verdict that came out.
There was a large verdict that probably swung a couple of votes from 88 to 91, frankly. But that was a California thing, right?
2 days.
I think I'm right.
Yeah.
2 days after the governor signed the bill, there's a group from Gainesville that popped a $70 million med mal verdict down in Albany. So I think jurors are still going to see through it.
Yeah.
If somebody did a bad thing that they shouldn't have done, even if it was an accident, and somebody got hurt, I think jurors are still going to take care of those people. I've got a lot of faith in our jury system. I think it's the best one that's ever been created. We're going to have to work a lot harder and figure out how to plan these trials a little bit better. But I think we can still get the evidence across and get the numbers.
Well, being a rule of law that's the complete foundation of who we are.
Yeah.
I mean, y'all get a bad rap as attorneys, and
sure.
But
we do it to ourselves.
Some of them create that for us. Yeah.
Right. No, you're right. And that's where not all are great.
Yep.
But the reality is, if not for the judicial system, our country's not what it is. And it's instrumental. So, and at the same time, the abuse of that system can absolutely destroy the entrepreneurs of this country and the state, that we've got to reel that in, because we need the businesses here. So there's a fine line.
Well, and I think that's really one of my bigger issues with it, is I think the bill was trying to protect these business owners, the hotel owners, the CVSs in the Carmichael case, things like that. That's what it was trying to protect, negligent security, things like that. And initially, maybe some doctors, even though I think it fell flat on the malpractice side. But what it's going to do, the trickle down to people who just got rear-ended today at an intersection, it's going to negatively impact those individuals more than I think it's going to benefit the businesses.
Yeah. Well, time will tell.
Yeah.
We'll see.
That's what I'm scared. And we're going to try a lot more cases. I mean, we're preparing to try 50% more cases. So you already see them starting to climb up a little bit on their offers, pre-litigation, just because they want to see how it's going to play out. So we'll have to go fight them. But you guys go beat up the insurance companies next year, and we'll be okay with you.
That's funny. That's too funny.
What else you got, Spence?
You want to roll into the quick fire?
Yeah, let's go to something a little more lighthearted and fun.
This is a fun part. So just quick fire questions about things you like. So first is your favorite spot in Forsyth County.
Brent's got an advantage over you because he's got the lake and the mountain.
You first.
I like the top of Sawney Mountain on the hike. It's pretty.
Office gets to look at it all day.
Pretty awesome.
Gosh, that's a tough one. Favorite spot in Forsyth County. I love it all, but I'm pretty happy when I'm sitting there at Post Road Library in that quiet room studying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unexpected answer, right?
Yeah.
I'm always happy to be on the lake, obviously, and floating around or going behind something, getting pulled behind something, or
Post Road. I've never been to the Post Road Library. I have to go check it out.
That's nice. Yeah, I take my kids there.
All right. You guys, Brent, we know you're a coffee fan. Carter, you got a cup of coffee sitting here. You like chain coffee or local coffee better? Local coffee shops, I should say.
Versus
big chain coffee.
Versus his racetrack?
Well, I wasn't going to call it specific.
That one, racetrack, man.
I mean, we just beat up on business.
Look at this face. Tell them why.
For me, I'm a community cup guy.
Okay.
A myth and legend guy.
Okay.
That's a great answer.
Because I love to see my friends when I go in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now I do drink a cup of that every once in a while because it's convenient and it's usually close to the interstate 400 when I'm getting on the road or head for Atlanta.
It's fast and cheap.
What'd you say?
Fast and cheap.
What was the last part you said?
Cheap.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to say their name though because I'm not I'm not getting royalties.
Hey, well,
I
I'm not
didn't.
saying
I
these names.
I'm not saying racetrack either.
Racetrack. Racetrack, if you're listening.
I
Hey, you were talking about Blue Mountain Coffee earlier.
So, yeah, Edgar's got Jamaican Blue Mountain, but they roast over there. Community. I
Yeah.
like the local stuff. I'm big time myth and legend. I like local. Community Cup's awesome. And there's, I represent part of Hall County. There's a neat place over on the square. So I'm all about the local coffee shops.
Okay. Excellent.
I don't like burnt coffee.
I don't like burnt coffee either.
Medium roast.
There's a big group that burns their coffee every time.
Yeah.
I can't stand it.
Yeah. There's a big lawsuit in California about something, but go ahead.
You guys Atlanta Braves fans?
Yeah, of course.
All right.
Absolutely.
Both Georgia boys.
Yes.
Who's your favorite Brave of all time?
Okay. So there's eras, right?
Okay.
I mean, you grow up.
Maybe. For me, there's one guy, but let's hear yours.
Well, the one's Del Murphy.
All right.
Was a big one. But then, I mean, I'm at Georgia in the early 90s. I mean, how do you not love everything about our World Series team or the whole pitching staff and Chipper and that whole group? But how do you not love Greg Maddux?
I mean,
I'm a Smoltz fan and Glavine and Avery and I mean, all of them. But
I figured you made Hank Aaron.
Well, I wasn't around for Hank Aaron. Yeah, I was. I guess I was 4. I don't remember Hank Aaron other than what I read. No, it's not Hank Aaron.
History of it.
It would be our pitching staff and that whole.
All right, the big three.
Yeah, man, that was Chipper. That whole group.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a fun group.
It was. It's good to grow up.
You?
I'm a history guy, so I have to pick Hank Aaron.
Hammer and Hank.
Yeah.
Well, you have to. That's fair enough.
I don't know that we've ever gotten Hank Aaron as an answer.
Yeah.
Got a lot of Del Murphys and a lot of Chipper Jones, but that's good.
I just a side note.
Yeah.
In high school, we used to do a thing called rolling people's houses with toilet paper.
Yep. Same.
We might have went to Crabapple as a group and rolled Del Murphy's house, which was right over there. Cause we used to umpire his little league baseball games, but
might be why he stays in Utah now. So thanks a lot.
His family was great, good people, but that was an Alpharetta thing. I'm sure that didn't happen in Forsyth County.
No.
Yeah.
That explains a lot to me.
What's the last book you read?
I'm reading Neil Gorsuch Overruled right now,
Really?
and the title says it all.
Yeah.
But the books that I keep handy, The Creature from Jekyll Island is
The Creature. I've never heard of it.
The Creature from Jekyll Island. The Federal Reserve was created at Jekyll Island.
Okay.
In Georgia, which is ironic, which comes back to that central bank digital currency bill I passed last year. I tried to get the governor to sign it when he was in Jekyll Island.
Anything John Grisham.
Same.
Just love all his stuff and have from the inception it's just 1776. It's a great one on some history. An interesting one, and this one may be harder for people to read, but I would encourage them to at least listen, is the Reagan Diaries. And just, he was probably one of the best to document in diary his entire presidential time. And to hear how he was processing and thinking is incredible.
Yeah.
So that would be kind of where I am.
All right. So now you get to go to dinner with any historical figure ever. Who is it and why?
Wow, great question.
Deep. We like to go deep on the Bettis Musgrove show.
Wow.
You're up.
Oh, God, I don't know.
It sounds like you're going to the creature of
Paul.
Okay.
Paul.
Apostle Paul?
Yes.
Oh, the Apostle Paul. I thought you meant
Paul and Ronald Reagan. That.
I mean, that's
Paul
a power
and
duo
Reagan.
right there.
Well, if we're going there, I mean, Jesus.
Oh, so we always exclude Jesus. That's the number one. We get that one.
Okay.
99% of the time.
Jesus.
Yeah.
We're excluding Jesus.
That sounds terrible.
That does sound.
I've had my preacher on this podcast. Chris, I apologize.
Wow.
Yeah. So
After
we don't
Jesus.
exclude Jesus.
Okay, so you're going biblical Apostle Paul.
But I'll set that
Let's do
aside.
it this way.
And look at that. I'll set that aside, and I'll say Reagan, because he was elegant and decent, and he is what the doctor ordered for where we are right now. Politics has become a nasty business.
Yeah,
and you know, I have an expression that I said, everyone, you know, some people can paddle like they're using a snow shovel, and some people can paddle like they're using a teaspoon, but everybody should grab a paddle.
right.
But you shouldn't grab a paddle to beat the hell out of the person in the boat with you.
Right.
You know, when we're paddling in the same direction, it's amazing what we can accomplish, especially in this community.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're constantly sort of bashing on each other, and we're not working, and we forget who we serve and why we're serving, if we're not all putting a spot way out on the horizon about what we're trying to accomplish,
right,
then it tends to get weird fast.
Yeah.
And Ronald Reagan to me was just elegant. He could absolutely disagree with you and disarm you at the same time,
sure,
because he was elegant and he was a nice person. And I just think that's exactly what the doctor ordered for politics today. So I'll set aside the biblical.
Yeah, you did a biblical and a political. That was good.
Yeah.
Well done.
Reagan.
You can't have that conversation at most dinners.
So I'm going to give you biblical.
Okay.
I think it would be really cool. Enoch.
Okay.
He was pre the flood.
Yeah.
He died the year of the flood. The oldest man to ever live. And he walked with God and disappeared. I kind of would like to talk to him to find out, like, what was it really like before the flood? I mean, we kind of have an imagination of what that would be like. But anyway, so that I would say Enoch. Politically,
you can't say Reagan now because you were going to. But
no, I was not going to say Reagan. And no, I'm not going to say an Indian, a Cherokee Indian. So just because that would be too obvious. Okay. I'm not going there for my people. Okay, let's go with. It would either be Washington or Adams. Some of the stuff George Washington did and Adams did. We'll go with John Adams.
Okay.
The Boston Massacre.
Yeah.
You attorneys should greatly appreciate this man who defended the very people that were that were the enemy, because rule of law was more important to him than the approval of all the people around him.
Sure.
And he was right. And if he doesn't do what he did, that's why he's one of my favorites. We're not a country. I mean, and he and Thomas Jefferson write the Declaration of Independence. By the way, there was a team that's kind of like here. We carry a bill and it's my bill. No, it's a team. It's a team effort. Declaration of Independence. But
Governor Dale gave us a history lesson on the Constitution, not the Declaration of Independence today. Yeah.
I would say John Adams. But now here's the question. How about y'all?
Who is true? It's never been thrown back at us like that. Non-biblical.
No, you get one biblical, not Jesus, and you get one political. And then we're throwing them another curveball, which will be none of that's outside of those two realms.
We'll let the younger partner go first.
Oh, wow.
Oh, biblical. My dad actually might inspire this one. Nehemiah.
Oh, good one.
Good one.
Led, construction of the wall, moving back to Jerusalem, essentially. So pretty important leadership story, I'd say. Oh, political. Do your biblical one first. Let me think.
I'm still thinking. There's a lot to choose from. Paul's, he's a good one. I mean, outside of Jesus, he might be the rock star of the Bible, right? So somebody less suspecting, maybe. Actually, I think I'd like to go to dinner with Jesus' mother, Mary. I think just as a parent, trying to hear what it would have been like to raise God from a child.
How about to be impregnated by?
Well,
the question
I don't
is,
want to get too personal with my questions.
Question is, if they had cell phones, would she have been bullied?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Think
no
that
doubt about it.
She was already bullied.
Yeah.
For being pregnant.
I think Mary, she probably got some wild stories.
I I would.
Did you ask which politician we will most want to meet with, or which person?
Any historical figure?
Any historical figure.
You said Reagan.
But it could have been any historical figure.
We're going to come back to that.
Could have been old Bill Shakespeare.
That's a fun question.
This is an interesting one. I'd say JFK.
Ooh, good one.
He saw a lot, and I know one probably most of it's classified, but I'd love to ask a lot of questions.
I'd like to know the last thing he saw. Maybe we will here shortly,
or a week before,
right?
Like what was really so. Let me ask this: outside of that, non-political, non-biblical, who is it? Any one of y'all?
One of the first explorers that came over from Europe, just to talk about what it took to get in that boat, not knowing where you're headed, and sail off to the horizon, thinking it's a flat world and you might fall off the edge.
You're going to end back over toward India.
Well, but they didn't know that.
No, I know. Right?
Yeah. That's...
So one of them.
Yeah, one of them. It doesn't matter which one. Magellan, Columbus, one of them.
How about Leonardo da Vinci?
Yeah.
Who's the most brilliant person ever?
Who is the most brilliant person ever?
Well, hold on. We got to finish this one.
It's going to be a bit obscure. But Francis Marion, he was one of the guerrilla warfare commanders. Yeah. In the Revolutionary War. So I did a paper on him when I was in college. So I think that'd be interesting.
Look at these guys turning around on those typical politicians.
Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. Mine would be, I don't know who exactly this would be, but I know the group of people who decided how to canonize what we know as the Bible, when in Ethiopia there's 81 books,
mm-hmm.
and in our King James, if you will, or European American Bible, there's 66. But who was I know the history, but I'd like to talk to him.
Who made the call?
Yeah, why did you cut 15 books out that Ethiopia kept going? Just curious. Anyway, that was one.
All right, let's end it with my favorite question. What is, if you get to pick your last meal that you're ever going to have, what are you having and where's it from?
Last meal.
I love food. This is my favorite.
What are you looking at me for?
He went first last time. You go first this time.
Oh, my last meal.
Be honest.
Yeah. I mean, it could be your mom's kitchen. It could be.
No, probably. I think my wife's homemade chicken and dumplings.
Okay.
And the dessert has to be my favorite, which is Mississippi mud pie. Ooh. Pretty incredible.
All right.
But you don't have runny chicken and dumplings. It's got to be thick.
I agree with that. So now you're on the spot because he just gave his wife a shout out.
Wow.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Well, I'm in trouble.
That was political, wasn't
it? I'm in trouble because I have a vegetarian for a wife, two vegan daughters, so I'm probably not going with a home cooked meal.
Going to filet from Towns.
I'm probably getting a filet, and I'm looking out at a body of water that's really great.
I like it.
Definitely looking at a piece of water.
Just filet. What are you eating with your filet?
Well, I'm probably going to eat something reasonably healthy.
Some Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
A little cream spinach, maybe.
And a coffee.
Yeah, I'm not a huge foodie, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And lately I'm coming around to, what we put in our bodies is pretty important.
Yep.
And it is amazing if you sort of cut out some of that bad stuff, how fast you start feeling better.
Oh, yeah.
And so letely I'm not eating the fun things. I've got a plan with my wife.
Okay.
I thought let's not eat for a whole day and let's have banana splits for dinner. Big old honking banana splits.
That's pretty healthy. Stuff. I mean, I think, that makes a whole lot of sense.
Just to go a little crazy because when you're this age, you can't eat hardly anything without just puffing right up.
So you're going to fast the whole day.
Fast for a day and then eat a banana split for dinner.
And it's not praying and fasting. You're just fasting to have
just waiting on
just to
eat a banana split. All right. Y'all?
What's that?
What are y'all?
Oh, it's going to be a steak. I'm more of a ribeye guy than a filet, but
Pittsburgh style, bone in.
Pittsburgh style is not bad.
Yeah.
If I'm here, Little Alley's my favorite steakhouse in this area, so it'll be a Little Alley steak. Although we went a couple weeks ago, didn't have the greatest one ever, but I'll give them another try. Yeah, and then I'm going to top it off with some Brussels sprouts and some cream spinach and mac and cheese.
Okay, you.
It's going to be a little bit of a bougie answer, but my sister-in-law got married in Italy a few years ago. And we went to this like country house, and this Italian lady made us this whole spread, and she made her own tiramisu and all that. And it was amazing.
That's your last supper.
Yeah.
Were you inside or out in the backyard and at a big table?
We were inside.
Outside.
Yeah. Just this little country house in Florence, I think, or Siena. So, yeah.
I'm not as well traveled. I'm just going to Roswell. So.
Well, the problem is he's got to get there.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Yeah.
So I thought it had to be like near the house, but
if it's near the house, I'd say J. Michael's over in Kent. Their steak is amazing.
That's good steak.
What is yours?
Steak.
Just steak. Find me a cow and and we're good to go. That's awesome.
Well, gentlemen, we appreciate you joining us. You guys are the first representatives that we've had. Like I said, I had the mayor, a couple of other elected officials, but first out of the Georgia House. So thank you a lot. I know y'all got campaigns coming up, so tell people where they can find you, where they can learn a little bit more about you, that type of thing. Websites, social media, anything like that.
Well, first we have May the 22nd out at Pelican Pete's, Port Royal. We have a pretty large fundraiser coming. Governor Kemp will be coming in and speaker. And we'd like to invite everybody to come to that. It's going to be casual dress, and we're literally got the whole Pelican Pete's. It's going to be fun. It's really an opportunity to showcase Lake Lanier across the state. And we'll have other representatives across the state that'll be there, and much to do with Altoona, Hartwell, Lake Oconee, and just promoting our outdoors. And I think that's important, but we'd like for everybody to come. Donations are welcome. You don't have to donate to everyone. You don't have to donate to anyone, but you can, and they're welcome because we have to run our campaigns. But
not expected, though.
Not expected. We just want you to come out.
Perfect.
So that's May 22nd, 5:30 to 8:30.
Pelican Pete's.
Please come.
All right.
And for us, little things are big things.
Sure.
It's a great privilege for us to serve.
Right.
And we love doing it. And the second we're not doing it down there, we're going to be right back here serving this community. Little things are big things. So when you show up, it means something to us.
Yeah.
Brent and I had an event last January 7th. And probably we had 300 people show up at 10 Cup. And that's just such a huge compliment. It re-energizes you because politics can be rough when you're campaigning and people make stuff up and they send out stuff and it gets pretty rough. So when your friends show up for you, the governor, he's done a lot for Forsyth County, $64 million, I think, for Post Road, $100 million for Highway 20. He's been good for Forsyth County. And when he's going to show up at Pelican Pete's, we ought to just have just throngs of people there, just because it'll be one of the last times we get to have the governor, this governor, up here. Mm-hmm. And so we just want to have a mob of people out there to say thank you for what you've done for our community. That's a good way to help keep it coming, by the way.
Yeah.
Is to show our appreciation when they are here. So I'm hoping people really show up.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention, so there'll be a parade of boats that'll also be making its way because it's the kickoff of Memorial Day weekend. So this will be Thursday. So bringing in, if you have a boat, you want to come on a boat, come on your boat, bring some American flags. I mean, we're going to have a good time. And this is a different feel. I can't recall a fundraiser being out on the lake across the state. At least I can't recall one myself. And, just something a little different. Cause
I think it sounds awesome. Yeah.
Sometimes they can be in a stiff room and it's just, No.
Little
Like
things, little things are big things.
Yeah.
So you can follow our Facebook campaign pages. That's a big deal for us. Just if we're going to do the work, you don't want to be the best kept secret in elected office, right? You hope that eyeballs will see, because that's how we keep in touch with folks, and that's how we get feedback from folks if they're happy with what we're doing, or if they've got an idea that's important that we can go help them solve, or an issue we can help them solve.
Sure.
So getting more people just to do simple things like follow our Facebook page.
Just your name on Facebook?
Okay. Barrett for State House.
Brent Cox for State House, yeah.
Okay.
Little things are big things. And that means a lot to us, believe it or not. When people actually make the trouble and show up at an event, it means a lot. Yeah. Because the people that I have come to an event, when they get to come hang out with you, they go, I met some great people tonight. And it's like you can have terrible food and horrible music, but if you have great people there in the room, you always have a great party, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So,
or
little things are big things.
State's kind of important. That's good.
Nice.
I'm kidding.
Well, once again, guys, we appreciate it. This was awesome. As always, find the podcast anywhere you listen to your podcast. You can find Spenser and me at bettismusgrove.com. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.